Hello Stampers, my name is Linda Bedinger and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. And today I'd like to show you how I made this Christmas card. I almost always do a white on white Christmas card with a little hint of color, and I ran across this technique. I'll move this a little closer to the camera so you can see this technique, which looks like almost silk material, and I thought it would make the old olive ink muted enough so that it would qualify for my white on white Christmas card for this year. And so let's just get to it. Let me show you what you need to make this card. We need a Whisper White base, 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. Then we need a piece of scrap Whisper White that needs to be at least 3.5 by 3.5, and we need a couple pieces of that. Then we need a panel for the front here that is 5 1/4 by 4. And so those are all of the pieces that we need to make this. It's a pretty simple little card, and I'll just get started here and show you what I did. The first thing I'm going to do is burnish and fold my card base here. Get that so that's nice and even and good and burnished. Okay. Now, what I did with this piece here, I cut out a circle using the largest of the layering circle ovals, and I used that not on this piece but on this piece, and I set it fairly high on the card so that I got this then. And then what I did was I ran that through the softly falling embossing folder here and ended up with a panel then that looks like this one. So I have my circle cut out and I have my softly falling piece on here. So then I cut out using these dies, these Christmas tree dies from the, gosh, what's the name of that set? It was the first one, early release, and I'm not going to remember the name of it. I'll make sure it's listed below. But I cut out using one of these pieces of scrap some of these trees. And in fact, my trees are on here right now. And let's see, where's my die brush? Here it is. Okay, so using my die brush and my foam piece here, I pulled out these little trees from the die, and they come out pretty easily. So there's one, and then the other one. And so I cut out my two little trees here, or 3 trees I guess it turns out to be, and then I ran those through this embossing folder with the wavy lines, and I put these in here. And I will say that I actually had to cut several of them because as you place these on here, you want to be really careful where you place them, because this makes a pretty deep impression on the paper. And I'll show you some of the ones that I did. Here's a perfect example. This is one that I put through the embossing folder, and you'll see that this little piece is nearly falling off. So you have to be very careful that where you place it on here isn't on one of the most narrow necks, especially at the top of the tree. And it looks to me like there's a couple places on here where there's actually quite a bit of available space where there isn't a whole lot of those lines. And sometimes it's just pot luck. What I did was I just ran through a whole bunch of them, and I have an old Cuttlebug machine, and I ran them through on the Cuttlebug. It's so old that the pressure on it is quite light, and so I didn't get as deep an impression, and I think that actually helped in this case. So I've got, and I'm going to use this one, and I'll show you how to doctor it so that if you get one of those that feels like it's a bit near to cutting off, what you can do to fix it. Okay, so I have my trees, I have my embossed cutout piece, and then I have this piece, which is my 3.5 by 3.5 square. And what I'm going to do is do my stamping of the trees on there and then put it on the back. And this technique is called, well, I've heard it called a lot of things, but basically it's putting on the base of it something that looks a bit like silk. So I'm going to use some scratch paper here, and I'm using the pine tree that I have mounted here from my Lovely as a Tree stamp set. Love this stamp set. Use it over and over and over again. And then I used some old olive ink. So here's my old olive. And what I'm going to do is ink up my tree. And what I did was I stamped full strength on some of the trees, and then I stamped second generation back behind, so I got the fainter kind of look. So some of them taller, some of them shorter. And I just filled up this panel as though I were looking at almost a forest, if you will, of these little pine trees. And I'm going to stamp off here and get a couple of other faint images here. Okay, I think that's enough. So now I have this little forest of trees here. And what I'm going to do in order to get this technique, what you need is some white tissue paper. And I'm really talking about the super inexpensive stuff that you can get at the dollar store. You can get a whole package of it for $1. And what we're going to do is just cut a little piece of this paper, enough to cover my panel here. And what I'm going to do is just crumple it. Now this is very easy to tear tissue paper. As you know, tissue paper is just very, very flimsy. But that's the point, because then you can be able to see through it. So what I did was I took my piece of paper and then I very carefully unfolded it. And I've done two different techniques in putting this paper on. The first one is I used some Tombow glue, and what I did was I used the bottom of the Tombow glue here, which has got this little applicator, and we'll just go ahead and do that here. And the other thing I did, and I'll tell you, I just used a glue stick. And what I'll do is I'll use the Tombow on this piece and this glue stick on the sentiment to show you how they both work. So turn this upside down and start to get some glue out of the bottom here of the Tombow container and kind of spread it all over. And it doesn't seem to make the ink bleed, which is kind of nice. And it does give you a little bit of residue of the glue through the paper. It's so porous. So what I did then was kind of unfurl this and lay it across my panel here, and then used my bone folder. Now you don't want to take out all the wrinkles because that's part of what makes it unusual looking, but I wanted to get it set down across the whole panel here. There we go. All right, and then I used my Dazzling Diamonds to get the glitter on top here, and there's enough glue that comes through when you use the Tombow this way that you have glue enough to stick down your Dazzling Diamonds. Now I'm just trimming away the excess here. And you will need to clean your scissors after this because the Tombow kind of seeped out and got on my scissors. And so I've got my panel down here, and then what I'm going to do is I took it right over to my Dazzling Diamonds and put the Dazzling Diamonds on the card here, like that. Now I want this panel, I suppose I could raise this, this outside panel over this. I didn't on that one, but maybe I will on this one. The Dazzling Diamonds makes it harder for some of the glues to stick to your work, so maybe doing that would make some sense. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some glue dots and some of the bones, if you will, from some of the old dimensional pieces here, and see if I can take these pieces and put them along here. And place this piece down. Okay, and there we have our pretty forest of trees with actually quite a bit of glitter. And I can see there's a couple of spots that the glitter didn't stick, so I'm going to use my glue stick here and see if I can get a little bit more glitter more evenly across the face of this. Should have done that before I put that on there because that's a catcher. There we go. Now there's plenty of glitter on there. All right. And so there's that piece. Now what I did also then was this now is ready to be mounted on my card base. And I did put a little bit of glitter on some of the points here, and I think I'm going to do that again, and I'm going to use the glue stick to just go over the raised portions of the snow falling here and maybe catch some of these flatter places up on top, so that I get a smattering of glitter on the face of this card. Okay, so back to the Dazzling Diamonds here. And getting some of the glitter. There we go. Isn't that pretty? I just love glitter. And I hate it at the same time because it's just so messy. Okay, so I think this piece is now ready to go on to the card base, and I'm just going to use, Fuse, and this panel, I'm going to use Fuse on the back of this panel, and then I'm going to put dimensionals around the edges of the rest of this so that the card base will end up being the same height all the way along the card here. All right, there we go. Now now I've got my card front on here. Now on the trees, let me get my little trees back here. What I used was dimensionals. I also used a little bit of the glue stick on the front of these just to get a place for a little bit. There, see, that one came apart. But I think they're still usable. And I'll get my Dazzling Diamonds back here and get these trees with a little bit of glitter on them. And it's mostly on the raised portions, which is just fine. And then I'm going to, let's see, I'll use my silicone mat here because this is going to be a little on the messy side. And what I'm going to do is put some of these mini dimensionals up here towards the top of the trees, and any place that a tree looks like it might be coming, a section might be coming apart. It's a perfect place for you to put a dimensional to kind of hold it together. And actually some of the larger dimensionals can go towards the bottom here. And it's almost like you're using some of the mini dimensionals, almost like tape on a couple of places where putting it through the embossing folder weakened it just a little. But I'm going to put this little pair of trees right here to the side, and then I'm going to take this single tree and put it between the two and a little lower. There we go. All right. And this was just Elmer's all-purpose craft bond glue stick. So any hobby store just about has it. Okay, so let me get my stamp out of the way now and clean up a little bit of my surface. Okay, so now what we need to do is to add back in the sentiment here, and where we cut out the circle out of the center of this piece here is where we're going to get our sentiment from. And I used the one from Christmas Pines that says, "May the simple joys of the season be yours." This is one of my favorite for the holidays because it's non-denominational. I have lots of friends that are Jewish, and so they don't want something necessarily that says Merry Christmas on it. And I do want to send them a holiday card or give them a gift, and so this works out beautifully. And so let's see here. Where's my... Well, I've got a pad of paper, and if I use my silicone mat, I should be okay here to stamp this sentiment. Okay, here we go. And I just centered this on here to try and get a good image. There we go. And then I did the same thing. Now on this one, I used the Tombow using the bottom. And on this one, I'm going to use this glue stick. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the whole thing with glue because I want my tissue paper to stick all the way around. Okay, so there I've got my glue all the way around. So what I'm going to do is cut a square of the tissue here that's bigger than I need to cover my circle. And I am going to crumple this tissue just like we did for the trees and just crunch that up a little bit here and make sure I've got enough glue down here. Add just another little bit. And then I'm going to carefully unfold this piece and set it on my paper, again using my bone folder to get it to stick all the way around the edges. And you can tell very quickly if you have enough glue down or not because the edges pick up. And so with this, I added a little bit more glue here and there. And then what I did is exactly what I did on the other piece, is I went ahead and trimmed the excess off around the edge of my circle here. Okay, so there's my sentiment with this. I hope you can see that. It's got like little wrinkles in it, and it looks very much like a piece of silk. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is use my label punch here, and I'm going to slide this in to here. To get it centered. You can catch the edges on both sides, so it's easy to manipulate in here and get that centered and then punch that sentiment out. And because of the way we trimmed the pieces around, now I do have a little edge here. Just trim that around, and it looks like it has not quite enough glue underneath it. So I'm going to peel that back and put some glue and then put it back into place. There we go. All right. And trim any little edge. And there we have our piece on the front here. And on this one, I didn't add any glitter, but I think on this one I will. I'm going to just put some more of this glue stick on the front and around the edges here. And I'm going to stick that back in my pot of glitter and get a little glitter on the front of my banner there, on my punched out sentiment. There we go. All right, lots of glitter today. So now I'm going to raise this on dimensionals so it'll match the height of the trees. So this I'm going to put in place right down here, and I put it just to the edge. In this one, it's just inside. Kind of depends on where you put your trees. But if I put this just on the edge, it covers up just a tiny bit of the trees there and gets put into place. Straight would be good on my card here. And there I have my pretty card front done. Now on this one I didn't put glitter on this piece, and you decide for yourself what you think. But I kind of like it both ways. I do like the glitter. All right, on the inside of the card, what I did was I have a panel cut of Pear Pizzazz. Now, I didn't use Old Olive because this was so muted that the Old Olive was almost too dark. Since I made the Old Olive muted on here, the Pear Pizzazz seemed to. So, in fact, I don't think I said at the beginning that I was using the Pear Pizzazz piece. So, but I am putting that on the inside. And this is cut 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. And we'll just use some snail to put this in place. And then my white panel is set at 4 by 5 1/4. So a tiny little border around the rim there, and then again a tiny border just showing the green on the back here. Again, just a little hint of the green. All right, and then what I did was I took one more of the trees. Yeah, there we go. There's one that I cut ahead of time. And so I'm going to put that here on the inside, and I'm going to do what I've done on the front. I put a little bit of the glue stick on here, and I glittered up my tree just a hair. And then I put it in place here using a little of the fuse because it's got glitter on the front and it's embossed, and I want to make sure it stays put. So I just put a little bit of fuse on the back here, and I laid my tree down here in the corner, and that is it for the project. So here we have the original, and here we have the one that we've just done together. And you can see the only things that I did different is I put a little bit of glitter on this sentiment here, and the rest of it is pretty much the same. It looks like I cut this piece on the inside white a little bit smaller. Your choice. This one has almost no border, just a very minimal border. This one has a larger green border. So that is the project for today. Thanks so much for stopping by my YouTube channel and visiting with me today. I do so appreciate it. And everything you see here can be purchased on my 24/7 shop, www.albedinger.stampinup.net, with the exception of the glue stick and the tissue paper. And my guess is you probably have some of that stuff around in your stash anyway. And so my white on white with a little bit of color Christmas card for this year. And let's see, the prize draw for this month is the Soft Sayings card kit in the catalog, in pages, I think it's 10 and 11 in the catalog, in the main catalog. And to alert you, the Stampin' Up! is introducing the new alcohol markers. And I'll be doing some things with the alcohol markers here very soon. And they're available on November the 1st. And the markers themselves, in fact, let me grab some so I can show them to you. They're really kind of fun. And I made a little box to hold mine, there's a rubber band around it because they've got to travel. I'm taking them someplace. But basically, the markers, this is the markers. And there is 2 each of every color that they've got, and there's 12 colors. So this is Cherry Cobbler, this is Calypso Coral, Daffodil Delight. This one I think is Soft Sky. Let me see if I can remember. Oh, nope, Pool Party. That's the blue that they used, Pool Party. Pumpkin Pie. There's Pink Pirouette, Rich Razzleberry. There's a gray set and a crumb cake set and an old olive set and a Bermuda Bay set and Night of Navy. And then there's 3 additional, a bronze, an ivory, and what they call a color lifter. So you can do a lot with these, even if you only have one. And they're going to come out, they're going to be priced at $4.50 a piece. And so you can get them singly, or you can get them in a combo pack, so you get the light and the dark in the same color. Those are $9, and you can get the whole shebang for, I think it's $126. These are artist quality blending alcohol markers, and I don't know if they're going to add more colors. They may in the future. It would probably be good if they did. I just messed around with them a little bit, and I got to tell you that it's really kind of fun, and there's a lot you can do with it, even if you only have one of the colors. If you get one of the colors, I would get the lighter, because you can layer on more color to get shadows. And this is one of those things you need to put on your wish list and get a few. And for next month, I'm going to have, as part of the prize draw, 4 sets of these, plus the 3, the ivory, the bronze, and the color lifter, and then 4 sets of colors. So that'll be the prize draw for next month. Anyway, I just wanted to show them to you, and excuse me. Thanks again for stopping by and visiting my YouTube channel. And that's all for me. I'll be back soon with more projects and more cards. Bye.